one reason that I wrote this book, I'm an anti-capitalist anarchist personally. I've been involved in direct action movements for a long time, and it always seems to me that capitalism is being held together more by moral arguments than anything else at this point, because most of the old practical arguments don't really apply. For the last 50 years, you just said, well, capitalism creates great inequality, but at least, it lifts all boats, and even poor people know their children will be doing better off in the next generation, and nobody believes that anymore. That's obviously not true. The other argument was it creates a big, strong middle class, and that leads to political stability, and that's clearly not the case. The other one was technological. We're all going to be on Jupiter in a few years. There's going to be endless inventions. Capitalism is a huge engine for creativity, and instead we just get like iPhone 7, iPhone 8. All the sci-fi stuff it used to happen, but capitalism seemed to stop producing that stuff all of a sudden. So none of those things are true. So in a large way, I think the only two arguments left are, well, anything else would be worse. It's us or North Korea, basically. And the other argument is, well, it's basically moral. It's just like people really do believe that if you don't pay your debts, you're a bad person. I mean, unless you're rich, in which case it doesn't matter somehow. But if you're Donald Trump and you go bankrupt, they elect you president. But if you're an ordinary person, you're a deadbeat and a bad person. And so that one really works. People feel that you really have to pay your debts. It doesn't matter if you've been maneuvered into it, which is a really, really convenient thing for the guys who are running a financialized system, right? Michael Hudson actually made the argument that, 30 years ago, rich people discovered that poor people actually feel they should pay their debts, which had never occurred to them because they don't, right? It's true. I mean, people ask me why I'm a professor. They say, why don't you become a writer? It'll be more fun. You'd set your own hours. You wouldn't have to do all this admin work. And I always say, well, there's one thing about academia which isn't true of being a musician, being an artist, being a writer, any of those things, which is they never ever pretend they just forgot to pay you. Every month, there it is, like clockwork, and anything, where they have any excuse not to pay their debt to you, they won't do it. It's just amazing. That's why we have agents, I could tell you stories. But, all right, so debt is one thing, and the other one is work. They really seem to have convinced people that if you aren't working harder than you want to be working at something you don't particularly enjoy, preferably under the orders of somebody you don't like, then you're just a bad person. You don't deserve help. You don't deserve relief. No one should love you. And how that happened is one of the things I've tried to investigate over the course of the book. How it is that we see work as this kind of a act of self-abnegation. It's a secular hair shirt. It's supposed to be suffering. To the point where, if you get anything out of work, it lowers the value rather than making it better. Even the knowledge that you are helping other people. So there's this perverse idea that not only is it generally true, there are exceptions to every rule, but it is generally true that the more your work benefits others, the less you're likely to get paid for it. But people think that's okay. In fact, a lot of people think that's right. Well, we shouldn't pay teachers too much. You don't want people who are greedy teaching our children, that sort of thing. That comes out of this idea that work should be suffering itself. Anything you get out of it mitigates its self-sacrifice value, and that is the flip side of a serious system of consumerism. So, we deserve our furtive consumer pleasures because we spend most of the day suffering. And therefore, the uselessness of work actually adds to its value in some perverse way, unconscious way, rather than enhancing it. Something like that must be going on. Why is it that it's considered acceptable that nurses and the guy who gives you trade information or people who actually help you in some way should pay the cost of austerity and bankers shouldn't? How does that make any kind of moral sense to anyone? It's can only be through some sort of logic. Well, you guys are self-sacrificing, go self-sacrifice. And So what I was trying to do is to take aim at that kind of moral argument. I wrote one book about debt, that seemed to work fairly well. So this is my contribution to the debate about work.